Yo, 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 it's ODB from OLP, and this is my big homie. Introduce yourself.
What's going on, guys? I'm LMC from the LCD podcast, and obviously, once again, my good guy here has ran out of guests, and I answered the phone.
I love it, my brother. And listen, you don't know this, but you are guest co-hosting. I have been, this might even be an interview because last I've talked to Mike a couple months ago, he was down in Mexico trying to cut a deal. So my brother, if we
I
could
mean,
hold the nose of the plane up, as Bubba the Love Sponge would always say, I need your help, dog.
I'm telling you right now, somewhere, I'm sure I have a brand new CV resume. I can hold it up to the camera real quick and kind of get an idea of your listeners, see what they think. I'd be down, man. I'd be cool with that.
The only thing I ask is we're going to get rid of the mics and we're going to go back to CBs, man. You know what
You
I'm
know, it's,
saying?
it's funny that you say that because if you look really hard, you see an antenna in the corner of my office that is totally a shortwave radio. I think we can make that work.
Yeah, funny story. Dad's family, extended family, they live up in Kentucky. And when we were kids, we went up there several times. And it was always cool because I think there's a lot of, is it clay in Kentucky a lot? Or I know Georgia has it.
There is quite a bit, yeah, especially southern Kentucky.
He was a truck driver and it was always cool because his house, you could drive, it was one of those where you could drive around the back and then I think the garage, like you could pull in the garage in the back. But anyways, he was the first person that told me about was it called a linear or something? And it's some CB thing where like the guys would
Oh,
have
a linear, an amplifier.
yeah, and it would go like
Yeah.
20 miles, but they weren't supposed to have them because it was
Oh,
like
they're illegal as hell, absolutely, but they're amazing to hear. So when you're using a linear, a lot of the coal truck guys would use those around here. You do what's called stepping on people. Your signal strength is so strong, you wipe out the entire channel. And that's a good way to make some enemies really quick when you step all over other guys using CBs. But there's little cottage industries here for tuning linear amplifiers. And that's still a big thing around here. You'd be
linear
surprised.
amplifier. Okay. Yes,
Absolutely, man.
crazy. If you guys are listening on a podcast app, please continue listening. Also check out LCD, lowest common denominator podcast. But also
It's okay, Jason. I don't know what it stands for either at this point.
1 plus 1 is 8. But we're also going to be on YouTube, so check this out. I want to thank our title sponsor, Scraping the Coast, for always coming through every June in Biloxi, scraping with an IN, thecoast.com. We're always I try to be full of useless information. But on this episode, I want to talk to my big homie who we have here. And, I want to give you some props real quick. I always talk about giving people their flowers, but you're one of the nicest guys I know. I know your friends are going to be laughing at this, right? Because I know you guys probably have a good time kicking back and, and having some good locker room talk and doing what you guys do up there. But, you're a great guy. You ran the H Word show for such a long time. You've got deep inroads, if you will, up there. So I just had to put you on the spot and give you your props, brother.
Well, that's unnecessary, but I greatly appreciate that. Coming from somebody like you, that means so much more than just lip service. And it's interesting, while I don't give myself nearly as much credit as you just did, I was lucky enough to be at a time in my life that I've kind of had almost 15 seconds of fame. Back when I did the H Word show, and I was never a known name, but the show did a pretty good job of standing on its own feet. And then there's 8.5 people or so that listen to LCD podcasts. That's also my kind of other 15 seconds of fame. And just like All Stars, that one's kind of fading as well. But it's been so much fun to get to be re-involved in the scene in a different way. And I was actually on the Behind the Decks with DJ May's podcast not too long ago. And you talk about a very sobering thought. He brought me on as the old show promoter to show how it used to be done back in the days of CB radios and handing out flyers and stuff like that in person. And that was very interesting to actually have that moment to talk about how it used to be and be an accurate statement. It was like my dad and I joked the other day. It's weird hearing the music that I grew up with on the oldies stations now, and that's kind of how it feels too. But thank you, Jason. And again, while I don't agree with that, and I sure as hell don't say I'm a nice guy. Anybody knows me knows I'm a word I probably can't say on YouTube. I don't want to get you demonetized here. But thank you. That's very gracious of you.
Yeah. And you're a good family man too. And that's a big part of, who we are. We don't always talk about, our better halves or our kids and things like that, because we're here to entertain to a certain extent. So again, thanks for what you do. What I was trying to think of earlier, I was trying to think of a wrap. I was going to say, we had LMC and ODB, LCD and OLP. We're down with EBG and OPP. but I didn't know how that would go up in your neck of the woods, man.
Well, I try my best to stay away from the acronyms that I learned in the 80s and 90s, man. Again, I'm being very PG today, so I know how this YouTube stuff works.
I want to give some love too to a guy named Shay. I don't know if you know him, and a guy named Farva up your way. And I tell you what, dude, you guys entertain. And I would ask many of you, you'd have to be sleeping under a rock not to know what LCD podcast is. But if you're on Spotify or however you're consuming, do me a favor. The 8.5, my understanding, the half is Hank Norris. Okay. Let's get them to 9. You know what I'm saying? OG, I look at that as 81.2.
Whatever. It's yeah, whatever. It's a good day. It's funny, Jason. And again, I appreciate the shout outs and that. I was in Western Kentucky not too long ago. I was at a cruise in called the Owensboro Octane Cruise In, which is mostly mini trucks, and it's some of the extreme lows guys from out in Western Kentucky. And there was a gentleman there with a very nice vehicle, and he was wearing an OLP shirt. I think I sent you a picture of it. And he looked at me for a minute as I was talking. He's like, "Man, you sound familiar." I'm like, "Yeah, of course, LMC from LCD." He's like, "No, that's not it. You were the guy that talked about McDonald's and OLP." I'm like, "Yeah, that too, man. That too. That's totally me. That's totally me. What the hell else would I be doing?"
Yeah, and here this whole time I thought you just threw a shirt to your buddy and said, "Hey, put this on."
Nah, I totally tried to throw him an LCD shirt. He looked at it, like, "Nah, man, that's all right." Just tossed it back.
They ain't from my hollers or my hills.
There you go. Close enough.
Um,
Close enough.
so I want to give a huge shout out to Hamburger Weekend, where you're of course wearing which duds do you have on today? Which one?
I have on the "I'm with those people" shirt. So I'm actually one of their tech shirts today. My OLP shirt wasn't clean, so I thought I would kind of do
Ah,
a little support for these guys and stuff. They've been great. Of course, we're just off the Spark show here, I guess last weekend, which was the best Spark show other than the year you came. It was great having you there. But other than you not being there, it was the best Spark show we ever had. It was
yeah.
awesome. It was so much fun, and we actually got the opportunity to just hang out. We didn't have an inventory, so we couldn't sell. That's one bad thing about being, Adam and Dizzy. They got to work it. They got to sell. Shay and I, we just kicked back and hung out in parking lots all night and acted like mini truckers, and it was fun. It's so much. People sometimes need to take a breath and just hang out in a parking lot and enjoy themselves. You kind of remember what got them into it in the first place.
Yeah, it's well said. HAMMERD. You can see the logo right there. And give them some love. They're good people. They also, as many of you know, run the Spark Show every August in Sevierville, Tennessee. I wanted to ask you this for our breaking news. I recently picked up, I'm going to show you this. I recently picked this guy up here. Now, as much as I know the impact of wrestling, right?
Yeah,
As I
sucks.
um, you
Sucks.
know, Hollywood Hogan or the Hulkster passed away. What when you heard that, being we're similar in age, like, does that strike a nerve where you just go, wow, like some of my heroes as childhood heroes are passing?
Oh, dude, absolutely. It was fascinating, and that was within the span of 2 weeks, you had Malcolm Jamal Warner, you had you had Ozzy, and then you had Terry Bollea, which absolutely heartbroke me. Of course, I grew up as a wrestling fan, and I grew up really young as a wrestling fan, so I got to see Hogan way before the NWO stuff, even back in the AWA days, which was one of his very early tenures in the early '80s. Yeah, dude, I was heartbroken because taking any past transgressions aside, because Lord knows everybody has skeletons in their closet. You grow up watching the character of Hulk Hogan, and it's so funny to think, and it's very relevant, I think, to what we discussed earlier. A lot of those childhood icons that have been canceled, if you will. I think the world is healing to some extent. I think a lot more of those that may not have been in vogue over the last 4 to 8 years are being more welcomed back into the flow of things. And, he had a lot of crosses to bear, but I believe that Hulk was getting more universally accepted by people again. And I hate that things happened before he could complete his redemption arc, if you will. But yeah, man, it killed me. I remember I was driving home and I seen it pop up on my phone. I'm like, this is a rib. There's no way. There's no way that he's dead. Hell, he was on Raw, 2 months before that. And I mean, that's one thing that nobody can outrun is time. And when it's your time, it's your time. And that sucks. And I hate that. He had just opened a brand new Hulk Hogan's Beach Shop in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee,
I heard
and
about
had
that.
sched yeah, and had scheduled a time to be there. And of course, obviously that never happened, but, it was a week or so before he passed away that they opened it, and that really sucks. Because we would have totally got Hulk out at Sparks, and we would have cruised the strip with him.
Yeah, and yeah, exactly. And you think about just the crazy part is, his lineage was all, down here in the Tampa Bay area. But to your point,
Yeah.
to
I've been to
have
that beat shop, absolutely, yeah.
yeah, to have that almost like iDrive, which you guys had that way before we even had it down here. So Pigeon Forge. But my dad used to always talk about my dad was born and raised. He was born at MacDill Air Force Base here in Tampa, and when he would see Hulk like out of high school, and they'd go down to the old Tampa Armory building, and he said there were these wrestling matches. I think it was all like amateurs, but
Sure,
Hulk would
yeah.
go there, and my dad would always do this. Rest in peace to my pops. He'd always go. Hulk would be walking around with his chest bowed out. He said he had hair down to like basically his buttocks, right? And he would wear these silk shirts. And my dad was like, he'd walk around, and he was very like respected. Like you would look at this dude and be like, man, that's the man. And if anybody wants to go down nostalgia road, I recently watched on YouTube Johnny Carson's family, or the folks that are over that, his legacy. They have their own stuff, and they put that first appearance of Hulkster on there, circa 84, 85. And man, it was a treat to watch.
A lot of people growing up as a wrestling fan, I know, they would always say that Hulk couldn't wrestle. So if you're going down that rabbit hole, pull up YouTube and look at some of his Japanese stuff, especially the matches he wrestled Antonio Inoki in IWGP, which is, oh hell, I can't remember what WGP stands for, or New Japan Pro Wrestling. His old Japanese stuff, he put on a show. Things that he would never do in the States. I'm sure they probably just didn't offer him enough money. But it was different getting to watch him in Japan, because in Japan, it was not about the storylines as much as it was the actual skill set. So he had to perform. And even as a heel or a bad guy, he actually drew so much respect in Japan, they couldn't keep him as a bad guy because the fans loved to see him. So if you want to be a true old school wrestling fan, look up some of the old IWGP wrestling stuff with Hulk Hogan in it. It's fascinating.
Dude, I appreciate you sharing that. What was funny is last Spark show might have been, it was either I think it was the last one we went to. We went out to eat one night, and
Yeah,
I
yeah.
always joked about, with Dizzy and Glenn and those guys having this like whole wrestle off thing and everything. Well, my whole idea was to like go back and forth, like almost like a freestyle, but who could, like, I name a wrestler, you name a wrestler, and we keep going back and forth till we're just out of gas, right? As Bubba would say. So what was neat is I did that with Diggity Dom. And we go back and forth and we back and forth. And like he was pulling names out, and that reminded me, even though like my uncles all watched it, like I knew about it. My neighbor loved it. It was the funniest thing when they were kids. There used to be this little rink deal. And the guys, it was weird by now, today's standard, you'd put your finger and it looked like you were sticking them, in the bags. Weird stuff. But they were like finger wrestlers. And he had the
Oh, I remember
junkyard dog.
that.
Yeah,
I
and the
actually remember
junkyard
that.
dog was my favorite one as a kid because you wore the chain and all that.
That's going way back, man. Those childhood memories. It's so funny how many of those have have been forgotten. As soon as you said that, I remembered the muscle figurines. It was an acronym, MUSCLE, and I don't remember what it stood for. But there were these little plastic figures you could buy, and they were space aliens done up as wrestlers. And of course, it was a very collectible thing, and you collect whole sets and stuff. And then I think of the Madball toys and Garbage Pail Kids that all kind of go along that same exact route. And those kind of icons when we were little, they get forgotten, man. They just completely get lost to time.
Yeah, and one other thing I'll say is the other figure I got was, of course, he's since passed away, Rando Macho Man.
Huh?
But when I was a kid, my dad, because he worked for the phone company, he could come by on lunch and like get a bite to eat, or he had this big old orange igloo cooler in the back of his van, and we'd always open the door and it had ice in it every day, and it was always ice cold. I posted about this, and I thought someone gave it to him, but he actually found it one day. He was working on a pole, getting ready to climb a pole, and he found it was a Macho Man figure, but it was like, I've been looking for him on eBay. It was a bigger one, and he put
Wow.
a zip tie, and he had it like in the cage of his truck. So when we were, it was like he had this little stance, and when he would come by, I would always look at that as a kid. I thought that was the coolest thing. And it's weird how those memories stick with us. The Goonies, if anybody wants to go back, there's two music videos for the Goonies are good enough. There's like part A and part B. And the part B, I think it is Cyndi Lauper. They have a bunch of the wrestlers like the Iron Sheik and stuff.
Mhm.
And it's kind of It reminds me of the earlier days. Remember when we were kids, you'd get up on Sunday or Saturday morning and watch, eat cereal, watch cartoons.
Mhm.
That's what it all reminds me of.
Well, it's funny that mentioned Cyndi Lauper. Of course, she performed at the first ever WrestleMania, but you're also talking about Randy Savage. You're obviously a fan. Well, I'm sure that you know that Randy's real name was Randy Poffo, and he was actually from Lexington, Kentucky. So he's
No, I
actually
did
a real
not. Don't
really?
ask me that trivia question.
Well, Randy and his brother Lanny, or Leaping Lanny Poffo, or the Genius in late 80s, early 90s WWE wrestling, they're original Lexington guys. And Randy got his start in Memphis wrestling, along with Jerry the King Lawler. That was actually the original stomping ground for Randy before he ended up going. Like, my memory gets a little fuzzy. I can't remember if he was WCCW or he went straight to the WWF back then. But yeah, he's a
Before the
Kentucky guy.
Federation.
He's 2.5 hours up the road. His family's from right up here, man.
Yeah,
It's a
totally awesome.
little random trivia for you. You know, I'm kind of full of useless facts.
The last thing I'll say on wrestling, as Bubba would call
Wrestling.
it, in the Land O'Lakes area, in the Tampa Bay area, you would be blown away at how many wrestlers live here. Even up in Land O'Lakes, I think the Bushwhackers used to live in Land O'Lakes, like a ton of them. And we used to always, like Florida has like different laws, like OJ and all these rich people would have houses here because I think if you filed bankruptcy, they couldn't take your house. And we always kind of wondered what it was, but it was actually, believe it or not, 1 year ago today, on August 19th, 2024, I got a chance to shake John Cena's hand when we were down
Really?
at the Rides by the River, and he was there. And then finally there was this long line and I went up to him, and he lives about 10 minutes from us. And
So,
yeah,
Jason, how do you know that you shaked his hand? Because you
someone,
can't see
okay.
him.
So someone, I posted on Facebook and they go, "Did you see him or something?" And I go, "Dude, bro, this is how rookie I am." I go, "I thought they were like ribbing me," and I go, "Hey man, I don't watch wrestling. I don't really know what that means, right?" And then someone put a GIF thing, and I was like, "Dude, I was like, bro, you got the Schwami." You know what I mean?
So here's a random for you. You mentioned the Bushwhackers, which is very very obscure to most people anymore. R.I.P. They started out as a tag team in Australia called the Sheep Herders, and
Wow.
they were one of the most violent, as in blood and barbed wire and death matches, tag teams to ever exist. And when Vince Senior, not Junior, but when Vince Senior brought them to the stage to compete in the WWF, or the WWF at the time, he branded them as a comic duo, the Bushwhackers, because he thought the Sheep Herders were too violent for TV and shows at the time. But they were as badass, sorry, YouTube, as bad as they came back then. So,
Yeah, do you think Cactus Jack could take them solo or nah?
you know, it was that type of comparison, though. That's exactly what you were looking at. They were those type of wrestlers back and we're talking late 60s through the mid 70s. So they were super old school wrestlers.
Yeah, Cactus Jack, dude, I don't even know a lot about wrestling, but dude, that guy went above and beyond. What's one other alias he went under, one other character?
Mankind, Dude Love.
Yeah,
Yep. Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
that's it. Mick Foley, the real names.
yeah. General updates brought to you by Southeast Mini Truckin Nationals. Or excuse me, the breaking news is brought to you by Lone Star Throwdown. Lone Star Throwdown registration, not pre-reg. Registration is open now, lonestarthrowdown.com. You must submit photos of your vehicle. General updates, dude. I just wanted to kind of ask you this, dude. So thank you for being a guest co-host. If anybody can get a hold of Mike, the last I heard, they saw him driving across the Skyway, tossing a BlackBerry. And I said, Mike, I told him 10 years ago, you can't be throwing cell phones in the ocean, dude. You're going to get got. You know what I'm saying?
Well,
But
if nothing else, guys, I think it'd be a really good idea to try and reach out to him, because if not, look, you're going to be stuck with me, and we're going to be talking wrestling and old cartoon stuff, and it's going to totally change the vibe, and nobody wants that. So you better find Mike unless you want to see a reappearance by LMC.
and if we have to get Shay on, we can do a religious episode as well. You know what I mean?
He's probably still asleep, dude.
So I want to ask you this. I am sharing the screen for anybody that's watching us here on YouTube. I thought of you, you and I always love to talk about McDonald's history, and you get me rolling on some of this. And hopefully you guys aren't going to pick up. There's a bad thunderstorm coming here, but experience the magic of McDonald land with a signature meal and specialty shake. How awesome is it that it feels like we're kind of getting back to the roots, if that makes sense?
You know, we've joked for a couple years now about my weird love for Ronald McDonald, and it goes back to a lot of the reasons you enjoy the things that you do. I don't even like McDonald's. I think the food is gross. But I remember being a kid, Saturday morning cereal, the Ronald McDonald Land commercials. Is that the storm? that I'm hearing? Can you hear me, Jason? Did I lose you, bud?
Yo, we're going to continue the episode. We did have Hurricane ODB come through yesterday. The rain was so loud. LMC said, yo, Jay, you need to take cover. I've seen that movie Twister. So I ran inside LMC.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know if we can keep the same flow going that we did yesterday. I hope there's just a nice seamless AI integration, and then nobody even realizes, other than our shirts changing and I'm in a different office now, that we just didn't pick up where we left off.
You know it, but I want to ask you this, man. There was some big news. You and I love talking McDonald's and experience the magic of McDonald land. This was kind of out of left field to a certain extent, but as these companies, the Nikes of the world, the McDonald's of the world, as they have any kind of financial hiccups, they look towards leadership and these different agencies to go, hey, what do we need to do? And I think truly, and I want to hear your opinion on this, I think they kind of said, hey, let's lean back into some of what we're really known for with these characters and stuff.
What you're referring to is over the last couple of weeks, McDonald's has been building up a type of grassroots propaganda, if you will, going back to the 80s, going back to even earlier dates when you had the Ronald McDonald Land characters and things like that. They are dipping into the nostalgia of it and bringing out characters that they have not used in a mainstream format since the early 2000s, and even some, a little bit later than that. But a lot of the characters they're referencing haven't even been used since even the 80s, for example. So what you're referring to is you get this special meal at McDonald's that comes with a collectible tin, and McDonald's Twitter account is really, really good. They really do a great job of, again, grassroots advertising, if you will. I never realized how much I talk with my hands until we're doing this video, so rock.
Yeah.
But anyway, they do this wonderful grassroots campaigning, and for the last week or two, they've been building up a return to McDonald Land, Ronald McDonald Land. And they were bringing out these collectible tins, as you've shown on your screen here. And of course, you have 6 characters on these tins. Let's see, Ronald McDonald, Mayor McCheese, Officer Big Mac, Birdie the Early Bird, I think Grimace, and what else is on there? Let's see. I'm gonna have to look here myself. Oh, we got the Fry Guys and so forth and so on, and Hamburglar. My bad. But anyway, we kind of talked about this, and it's interesting to see. For the longest time, and it depends on who you talk to, the Ronald McDonald character was vilified, and it was vilified in such a manner. Some people said because it promoted childhood obesity. My personal favorite story is about 2016 when all the scary clown happenings came out and people were dressing up as clowns and hiding in the woods. Is supposedly they pushed back from Ronald at that point because of the association with these scary clowns. Now, regardless of the reason they stopped using him and the cartoon characters, and I think it probably is more about the childhood obesity thing, because if you think about the tobacco companies, the old Joe the Camel advertising things, the characters that appeal to kids are often looked down upon in an industry that may cause some health issues, whether that be tobacco, fast food, whatever. But I think in a way the world is kind of starting to heal a little bit because they realize there's a lot of value in that nostalgia, and not everything has to be a dirty word. Just because it is something that may appeal to kids, that doesn't inherently make it bad. It's not a malicious thing. And I think finally somebody kind of seen the light and said, you know what? We have all these wonderful intellectual properties, all these proprietary characters we've had since 1963, which 1963 was the advent of Ronald McDonald. Of course, originally played by Willard Scott before it was adapted for TV in 65. And they went with a different outfit and a different character. But anyway, I think that they look back on that and said, we have all of this nostalgia. We have all of these IPs here. Why don't we do something with them? I mean, in the grand scale of things, who is it hurting? And it makes me very happy to see that they're bringing that back out. People of our generation, we grew up seeing the commercials, the McDonald Land commercials, the When I Grow Up skits on Saturday morning. And if you go even farther back, the original cartoons that came out in 85 and lasted, including a couple of direct VHS movies in the early 90s. But it's kind of neat that you're seeing that embracing thing. And I hope it's not just the McDonald's Corporation. I hope that several corporations that used to have a more gentler time, with intellectual properties and advertising and stuff, I hope that they embrace that again. Again, I say that not everything is a dirty word. That's not necessarily a dirty word. So I'm excited to see it come back. If nothing else, just to kind of feel like a kid again for a few minutes. But I look at it completely different. Like I said, I look at it more of the world is finally starting to realize that sometimes It's okay to have some fun with life. It's okay to be a
Yeah.
little silly. It's okay to not be so on edge and politically correct on every single thing that is done. And I think that is a very small catalyst going towards that movement.
Yeah, and when I think of the guy Morgan Spurlock, rest in peace, that made the Super Size Me film, right? You could really spin that with anything. Like if you ate one certain thing 30 days in a row, 3 times a day, I mean, there's plenty of things that we eat or drink for that matter that aren't that good. But yeah, I mean, to your point, I think it's a little bit of the healing. It's funny, I have a bunch of McDonald's. Mike would kill me for this, but I have a bunch of McDonald's NBA cups. Remember with the Dream Team and all that,
Yeah,
and having
absolutely.
worked for McDonald's, it was such a cool thing. And I think you and I have talked about this. For anybody that might be a little tad bit nostalgic with McDonald's and you want to watch something really fun and you have access to HBO, I believe it is, which by the way, HBO was like HBO Max. There's a whole thing with that. Now it's
Mhm.
HBO again, but or it was Max. I think it's HBO. I don't know. But there's that special on there about the Monopoly game, the scam behind that.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I'd forgot
And
about
it's
that actually.
yeah. And what I learned during that, and I couldn't remember, I was like, why do I not remember this? Right. There's that whole Mandela effect, and everything. But
Mhm.
that story broke news right around the week of 9/11. Unfortunately, in 2001, a horrific day in our country's history. So basically that news story obviously, got buried because you had this horrific thing that happened. But it's a very fun thing to watch. It goes really high up with the security company. I always wondered why I couldn't get Boardwalk and Park Place.
So if I'm not mistaken, wasn't there only 3 boardwalks in existence? And again, I may be mismatching my story here, but I'm under the impression that when the original Monopoly game come through McDonald's, one of the boardwalk pieces was achieved and mailed to a convent or a Catholic school or a church anonymously. Actually, and I have to Google that to make sure, but I believe one of the 3 that was found was sent anonymously to some sort of Christian organization so that they could actually cash in on it. And at the same time, and again, maybe mismatching my stories, I don't believe it was accepted because there was questions on how it was actually procured. And that's
I
just a fragment of a story, but there was something, we were talking about just a minute ago and talking about, again, the world healing and stuff. I think Pizza Hut to the same direction. When I was a kid, I remember the Book It program. Is that something
Yes.
you guys had down in Florida?
Yes.
So you could read some books and go get free pizzas. Something like that now is so just you can't do that because of, oh my God, what if these kids get fat? Well, maybe that's where parents come in. Maybe they shouldn't let them eat 6 personal pan pizzas in one sitting. Maybe go in there, play some games, get your one for your books. And I like seeing programs like that. So I think the McDonald's things might be just a little, again, a catalyst towards that direction of maybe some other companies saying, you know what, maybe we can have some fun with this as well. Maybe we don't have to be so stuffed shirt and suit and tie all the time.
But yeah, definitely check out the McDonald's thing. I forget if they shared that, but I know that they shared how a guy was basically selling the pieces, and it's
That's
a
cool.
crazy
Yeah.
little story, but it's pretty interesting. The scene or general updates brought to you by Southeast Mini Truckin Nationals, one of our favorite shows, both LMC and myself at Mini Nats. Of course, they have a sister
Absolutely.
show. I'm talking about possibly flying up the second weekend in October, and that is the Southeast All Truck
All Truck
Nationals.
Nationals. Absolutely. Maggie Valley, October 10th through 12th. Of course, we will be there. I actually got approval today, and I'm really excited about this. Perry Pruitt did me a solid. I'm actually taking my dad's 59 Impala with me to that show, and I
Wow.
realized that is a car, but they were kind enough to allow me to set it up in the booth because it's actually on our new shirt artwork. So if you fly up, Jason, and you want to, we will get out and cruise a 59 Impala up and down the strip a few times.
You had me at 59, dude. And Hank's favorite year is 69, but I don't know, like something they still haven't figured that out. But I got a couple more things before you because I know your time's valuable. I got the trivia and I got one question for you, LMC. Are you ready?
We will see, man. Let's see what we can do.
I just want to ask you this. Do you happen to know where was the first McDonald's at? Like maybe what city or even state? I'll give you a half a tick mark. I mean, for Mike's binder.
I hate to say this. I'm not sure. I would lean towards Illinois, but I don't think that's accurate. So help me out.
Well, I will tell you this, I did not know either, right? Full disclosure. And when I went to the McDonald's Wikipedia, which, Wikipedia is the law,
Oh, of course, right.
it goes back to the 90s in California, which I always forget. McDonald's brothers, and it kind of talks about the early histories. Then it
Before Ray
goes
Kroc,
on
right?
to say right here, it basically was, if I remember correctly, it was San Bernardino.
Wow, no, I was completely off. I thought it was Midwest, so I'm
So it
totally
says McDonald
wrong.
Brothers began the business in San Bernardino, California. 1940 opened the barbecue stand in San Bernardino, and then it says on
Wow.
May 15th, 1940, they opened their first McDonald's restaurant, and that was one. For some reason, I don't know what it is. I always think of Illinois and Indiana as well, or Chicago area.
Okay,
I don't know
that
why.
makes me feel better, yeah, because I
Yeah.
was thinking
So
Illinois or somewhere in the Midwest.
this one's a little bit more easy because it is a two-parter. What's if you think back to McDonald's in general, what's your favorite memory or your favorite menu item? And I can give you I can start with it if you want.
No, please, absolutely, be my guest. I would love to hear what you say.
Well, my mom's family's from Michigan, so once a year, once every couple years, we would drive from Florida 24 straight hours, if I recall correctly, to Michigan up in Tawas,
Wow.
which is northern, the farmland. And I just remember as a kid, to your point earlier, stopping at a McDonald's that had the playground, that had the
Mhm.
characters, and just, they were all a little bit different. So, like, it was super exciting. Like, you got to get out of the car and it was like, hey, we're going to go and sit down. Imagine that and eat, a Happy Meal. And then, the kids could run around and burn some energy. So that was always mine.
So a little bit different thing for me. 3 quick memories, and they're all very loosely related, and, number 1, this doesn't have anything to do with the store, but you're talking about the playground and stuff. So, there's a mini truck show in Kentucky in October called Revolution. It's been around for a couple years. It's making a
Yes.
comeback this year. About 5 miles from Middlesboro, Kentucky is a little itty bitty town called Ewing, Virginia, and my girl and I were out exploring one day, just being silly, and we might have trespassed a little bit on an abandoned school that we found on the side of the road, and we walked around, and the playground was all McDonald's playground equipment. So when they had phased out in the 80s, the local McDonald's and the McDonald's play place and stuff, when you had the original equipment, you had like the Sheriff Big Mac jail that people could climb in. You had the Hamburglar slide. You had the Fry Guys rocking chairs and all this really super creepy equipment. Well, we walked into the woods and there was this playground with nothing but abandoned 1980s McDonald's. And I'll send you some pictures. I've got a few pictures.
Please.
Just completely abandoned 1980s McDonald's playground equipment in the woods that they had donated to this elementary school. And the elementary school had actually set this up as a playground. And there was a plaque in the ground that called it McEwing Land because of in Ewing, Virginia, Ewing. And I'll have to send you some pictures of that. So that was a cool memory. And it was so bizarre to see that just out in the middle of the woods. And you can't get there anymore. It's still there, but the guy that owns it is now a cattle field. So there's cows walking through it and stuff. So it's kind of funny, really, really rare cheeseburgers walking around. But you're talking about the favorite store memories in Eastern Kentucky, here in Whitesburg, Kentucky, where I'm from. We had a McDonald's with a sock hop theme, with a 1950s theme. In fact, when it was built, there was 2 concrete pads with roofs out front, and the owner would change out classic cars every couple of months. He had like a Tri-5 Chevy, an old T-Bird, and things like that. And he would park them out in front of the store. And you went into the store, it had the red sparkly booths, the chrome trim on the tables, and tiny little jukeboxes on each table. It had a ton of rock and roll paraphernalia. They had a glass case in the middle that had like Elvis Presley memorabilia, things like
Uh-huh.
that, just down the middle of the store. Totally did not fit a McDonald's vibe, but I've read that there was a few like this, and it was really super cool because, after I used to play basketball at school, after ball games, we'd go to McDonald's and we'd sit there and play the jukeboxes and the table and everything and just hang out and have a good time. So that's kind of my best memory. It's not even traditional McDonald's related, but it was after the high school ball games, we'd go there and sit and everybody would eat together. We'd goof around, usually get
And
thrown
cut
out.
up.
And cut up, just be teenagers, just be stupid teenagers. But being a car guy, it was always cool to see the old stuff outside too. And it was so
Yes.
much more interesting than just the boring, brown and gray buildings they have today. Architecture and just the overall feel of stuff. Look at the old Taco Bells, how cool they were in the 90s, and just what a drab, boring building they are today. It's so sad to see a lot of what people think is progress, a lot of times erases the identity and the uniqueness of something that used to be.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I read a big thing several years back about how Apple has played a big part in that. Like, if you think about everything for a long time was kind of going like almost like a 3D. It was like, there was more depth to it. Like, and then you look at your iPhone, for instance, and all of the icons over the course of time, they become flat. And there's like this whole like change that has
Yeah,
kind of went through and processed how Apple has like driven the, I don't even know what it's called, that, you know, that entire industry where a lot of things are like that. And it's funny too, because someone posted the other day, it was something similar, and it was talking about like all these building. Oh, it was at McDonald's. It was a photo of like a current McDonald's. There's a new one by us, but it's like a brownish color, but it was like gray. And they were talking about, wow, like, is every new building gray? And like some places I've learned, like in some states they'll have a certain jurisdiction where like things have to be decorated a certain way, and so they'll
sure.
match all the. But yeah, it is kind of interesting. But the trivia with LMC is brought to you by the kinfolk at Garage Gear Clothing. Hit up
Yeah.
garagegearclothing.com if you
I
want to
bombed that
buy some
trivia. I'm
merch.
sorry, man. I
No, no, no,
bombed that
it's fun.
trivia
Hey,
today,
it's for
so
fun,
my
man. It's for
bad.
fun. Listen, before I let you go, I mean, I know we didn't really talk a lot of truck stuff, which was really the opportunity, or you know, the opportunity that I
Oh,
wanted. Like,
is that what we're supposed to do? My
no,
bad.
no, no. And see, and I kind of swerved everyone because like it's cool. Like I know people are listening to this going, hey man, like it's cool to hear these guys maybe talk about stuff that's not truck related. But I do want to tip my cap because news broke earlier. I found out Scott and Jenna Lease, they had kept it a secret,
Yes.
but their Damian Davis photo shoot has landed on the cover of Street Trucks, which I know you know them as well. They're good people.
Of course, absolutely. So Canberra's coolest couple, I think, that's a killer shoot. I was so tickled to see that. Scott and Jenelise have always been really good to me, and especially good to my kids. They've always been really nice to my daughter and stuff like that. Big fans of them, so I think that is very well deserved. Both are really, really wonderful characters. But the vehicles, by all means, those vehicles are definitely cover worthy, and it is rare to get that kind of opportunity to have a married couple with two matching vehicles. In fact, tell me, ODB, has that ever happened before? Has there ever been an instance that any of the major magazines there's been married couples, have two vehicles on it?
Well, it's funny that you asked because somebody asked me this earlier today, and I did pull up and I sent them the street trucks that had Wendy Elders and Craig
Mm,
Elders. But here's the thing, and this is not taken away from them. Her orange Tahoe was in the back.
sure.
You really, it was there. It was there more of as like as a set piece, right? And Craig's, and then hers ends up on the cover by itself a few months later. But if you really think about Jenna Lease and Scott, pretty certain that it is the first time there was like a specific photo shoot that ended up being two separate vehicles, but it's one shoot as well. I mean, I think it's damn near pretty rare if it's ever happened before, but this could be the first main one that we've seen.
Well, definitely a feather in their cap then. That is a milestone to be very proud of.
But yeah, I want to give a shout out to my kinfolk Severed in the South, or excuse me, I always say it wrong. Severed in the Midwest. It's this weekend, so if you guys can get out there, that's a big show. Local Rides Mag, they announced their new cover, which I think was in NC, Florida, and then Fair Enough up in your neck of the woods, Justin Wyatt, the big homie. But just kind of in closing, like we could talk truck stuff all the time, but I love sitting down and chatting about other stuff because the trucks might be the lion's share of like what our hobbies are, right? Our family's always first, but it is cool to me because like when you were blowing my mind last night with some of the wrestling stuff, and I was telling Scotty the Body about it today, and he's like, wow, his interest was very piqued.
Often when we started LCD, we always said that we're not a truck podcast. We are a couple of mini trucker buddies hanging out in a parking lot, sitting on the tailgate, just BS and just telling old stories. Those stories don't have to be all trucks, because if all we did was talk about trucks, how boring would it get so quickly? I mean, I enjoy the hell out of it, don't get me wrong, but there's so much more to the world and so many more things that we can cut at each other for, and we can find enjoyment in reveling in someone's knowledge that we didn't know that they had. But then just going even further than that, you find so many common or uncommon interests with other people just by sitting around and hanging out in a parking lot. I've already referred to this. I think I referred to it in the last part of this episode. But at Sparks this past weekend, Robbie Williams and Jennifer Ricker, they put together a post-meet, a cruise, and we ended up in the cookout parking lot, same cooking out that you and I were at a couple years ago. And man, we were just sitting around that parking lot having the best time. And I give so much credit to Glenn Brown. Glenn is one of my favorite people in the entire world, and no conjecture there. But him just sitting there in the middle of everybody, having the time of his life, cutting up, telling old stories, and going out catching his car on fire while dragging, and that's a whole other story. But, he, after that whole disaster, he just laughed at him like, man, what the hell's wrong with you? He's like, dude, this has been great. He said, I would burn down another car to have the experiences that we had tonight, just sitting there BSing with everybody, hanging out with like-minded people. and just having the time of your life, man. So again, yeah, you can talk about trucks until the day is over, but it's all that other stuff that makes the interpersonal relationships with everybody just so much more interesting. When you can find silly stuff out about people or things that you never knew, or what their weird interests are, and this, that, and the other. And no, it's interesting that I piqued his interest for that. I'm sure he and I will probably discuss wrestling at some point too. But hell, I don't know. Like I said, that's why we started, and that's what keeps us fresh in the scene, man. If you can't keep finding new things to enjoy, I've said it before, but life isn't a straight line, man. You got to take some turns sometimes.
Yeah, definitely. And my dad and I, it's kind of crazy when you said that line last night when we were recording. It just popped in my head. And for anybody, I know it's made for TV, but there's a TV show, Sons of Anarchy, and it's a very, very deep show. Like if you go and you watch the breakdowns of the episodes and how it starts. But in the intro song, it says a crow flies straight, a perfect line, and it kind of ties into the last episode with Jax. And my dad and I, like, even though we weren't, we're not like motorcycle hardcore, guys or anything like that, but it's such a deep show. And when I think of mini truckers, right, and the passion that we all have, I often think. Sure, we're not maybe as hellacious as the one percenters. I mean, maybe you guys up in Kentucky, right? But if you think about the passion that flows through, it's crazy that 30 plus years later we're still talking about these trucks. And I've talked to Ruben about this before. He's tipped his cap. So many of my friends have, because they said, LMC, Shay, Farva, but LMC, with the knowledge that you have in that region, right? And you could rattle off. I always forget the guy's name and the woman's name and the divorce and then the two shows and then this and then that. Like, it's so awesome, and I'm so thankful that you started the show. I know we always joke about listeners and stuff, but at the end of the day, like when you guys stop, if you ever do, hopefully you don't, it's like you've definitely left your mark, my brother.
Well, and I appreciate that greatly, especially coming from you, man. But it's not even so much about leaving a mark. If we can just make one person out there get a little more interested in the scene and maybe decide to do just a little more homework, maybe just Google that name or figure out who this person was that we mentioned or where this show was, then man, we've done our job. We always joke that we have 8.5 listeners. We probably don't really have that many. But of those few people that listen, if we can inspire one person just to kind of look back in their history a little bit and figure out who these people were and see what came before them, man, we've done our job. So, and I appreciate the accolades. Totally unnecessary. I still like you regardless, but thank you.
I want to give you a shout out to Local Rides Mag, good people, Bill and
Bill's
team,
great.
Phoenix Forge, FENIX Forge. They're going to start hopefully dropping mini truck wheels. I'm going to hopefully talk to Tripp, and I'll put some of that audio on this episode. But like I said, look, I want to value your time. I know you and I, we kind of have a lot of the same mindset. We don't want to take up each other's time, but we always have such a good time talking. And dude, listen, hopefully Mike is still in Mexico, because I'd love for you to like just somehow,
I got
like
this new resume, man. I'll send it your way. I've got a whole
dude,
new CV. It's got accolades on it and everything.
dude, man, I like the way you roll, man. But you know what? We won't even have to check the LinkedIn, man. You just patched right in. Oh, but hey, you're a good dude, bro. And I know you've been busy up there, and as we start to transition into the this latter half of the year, I would
Yeah.
encourage people. We had a quick talk off camera yesterday. And, I tell people all the time, like, yeah, I want people to support the scene. I know that you do, but, health and family first and all of that stuff is truly paramount, I think, is the best word I can think of. Spend time with your families. Don't feel like if you can't make a show, that it's not the end of the world. I know, I've had to, remind myself that, hey, like, it's okay to spend time with your family. My wife's grandfather just turned 95, and we don't know
Wow.
how many more of those we're going to get. And luckily, knock on wood, he's still in good health. But, that's, to me, family first, right?
It's one of those things, man. We do this because we enjoy it. This is fun. Very few people have mini trucking as a job title. And if something becomes a job, if it becomes to where you feel obligated to go to every single show or to go every meter, answer every call, this, that, and the other, then it's not fun anymore. I would rather the mini truck world for somebody to go to one show a year and have a good time than go to 10 shows a year. And by the end of the season, they're just slogging through it and they're so tired and they don't want to see another lower truck. because if you're not careful, you can burn yourself out on this. And that goes for anything, whether that's working out, eating a certain meal, whatever it is, watching the same type of movies over and over. You have to sometimes pump the brakes and enjoy it because, again, life is short, life, and it will not wait for you. My boss the other day told me I was wanting to go to a show or something, and I didn't know that I had the time. He said, son, he said, they're not going to change their schedule because you're busy. And it kind of hit me. He's like, that's a pretty profound statement. The world is not going to wait for you because you may be busy, but at the same time, it works both ways, and you don't have to do every single thing because Lord willing, the creek don't rise. Most of us will have a tomorrow, and that tomorrow we can fill with something else that makes us happy. And that's kind of the key in life, man. You have to enjoy it, or you're just kind of treading your wheels.
That's well said. I'll give an exemption for Rad 1986 and Dirty Dancing. Right, we can keep watching those. No,
And Dirty Dancing, right?
It's so well said. And the last thing I'll say on this is, working in the telecommunication industry for 21 plus, it was like I was at the infancy of like when the PDAs first came out, like from flip phones to like, wow, you have a computer and you're,
Yep.
way before Apple, right? And these little audio box and you had the stylus. And I remember like
Max Black.
Right, exactly. Mike still, I don't know how it works, man. BlackBerry's RIM is gone. Research your motion. He's got a different definition for RIM, but we can't talk about that. But the thing is that when you I remember being like at my away from my desk, and I'm like, wow, I'm responding like instantly to every email and every customer and doing this and doing that, and I did it for so long that it was just like I got to a certain point, like I didn't take a sick day for 7 years, and it was like everybody's going, dude, you're blowing 5 sick days a year that you have. You're killing yourself. Like, hey, I know you're passionate, but like, bro, like pump the brakes, like what you said, right? So the thing that I learned from that is that like I've had to like tell myself like it's okay to, a lot of people say no days off. Well, I go no days off from having fun because like if I go swimming one day or spend time with the family, like
Right.
it's fun, right? So I just encourage people to say, look, there's that old saying that your job will be posted before your funeral if you were to pass away, right? To a certain extent, right? Depending on where you work.
Yeah.
But I've had to just like take a breath and go, that same thing that it's like, Jay, you can't make the Hall of Fame every year. You can't make all this stuff. You can't. So it's like, it's that balance.
No, absolutely, man. And that's the key to life is having a healthy balance. But more than anything, if you're not happy, the people around you won't be happy. So you kind of got to make that a good compromise, if you will.
Yep. Last question for you.
Yes, sir.
Was it Jennifer Grey that was in Dirty Dancing?
It was, yeah. Pre-nose job, Jennifer Grey.
Yes. Yes. Do you take Jennifer Grey in Dirty Dancing or in Ferris
You don't have to ask the question, of course. Absolutely. 1000%. She ruined herself with that nose job. I don't understand. It's like when Molly Ringwald started dyeing her hair other colors than red. What the heck, guys? Come on now. That's
It's
killing
like
two of my kid crushes there.
Yeah, I mean, ginger, that's a key thing, right? Listen, bro,
Oh, my friend.
I got much love, much respect. I can't wait. Hopefully, we'll get to hang in October up
I hope
in
so, my
Maggie
friend. That would
Valley.
be awesome. That would be
And
awesome.
I would ask, I would tell you guys, I know many of you are listeners, go over on your Spotify or whatever app you're using, LCD, it's LMC from LCD, it's ODB from OLP. Much love and respect, my brother.
Thank you, my friend. I appreciate you having me, dude. It's been awesome.
One of these days, I'm going to get an AI to write an intro for our podcast as good as what you do for LCD.
Hey, sometimes I do screw it up, man. You've put me on the spot a few times out in public, and I've had to actually rattle it off. But at this point, I'm afraid it's kind of second nature. One day I'll get creative and come up with something new. Probably not.
Nah, we like it too much, man. Listen, much respect. Stay on the rise, my friend.
Thanks, man. Y'all have a good day.
Yo, it's ODB, and we got TRIPP. There's one. We just got to get this out of the way because we're going to talk about the freaking weekend. There's a big rumor going around about you, and I just want to put this to bed. Are you still recovering from the 4th of July fireworks incident?
That wasn't even me.
It wasn't even him.
Nah,
so
it was
listen,
a buddy of mine.
many of you are on Facebook, some are on Riverside, and you're on different channels such as YouTube. Thank you so much for chiming in. ODB from OLP. We got TRIPP, as I said, from the freaking weekend. This isn't going to be super long, but Tripp, give them the elevator pitch. Why do they need to come out to Biloxi in less than 4 weeks?
Biggest beach party of the summer. And we're almost out of tickets. So like now's the time to do it if you're going to do it.
The freaking weekend, the 19th, 20th, 21st in Biloxi at Harrah's. One of the biggest draws about this event, Tripp, for me is the Harrah's Hotel the
Yep.
hotel motel is right across the street. You take
Mhm.
the catwalk, you take the stairs down, and biggity boom, you're at the event. How
Yep.
awesome is that for your show goers to make the experience what it is?
It's perfect. You park, you stay, you play. I mean, it doesn't get any easier. Like if you want to party, if you want to hang out, you don't have to go anywhere. You just park, set your truck up, and then you're there all weekend. Like it doesn't get any easier than that.
Yeah, people used to talk about Detroit Autorama, Havoc, some of these shows that were what we call destination shows where you would park and then you didn't technically have to leave. The good thing is also, I want families to know that it is a family event. But Tripp, people can eat at this, casino hotel, but they can also drive if they want to go to like a Cane's or something like that locally.
Yeah, there's tons of restaurants down the strip. I mean, it's right in the middle of Biloxi and it's right on the border of Ocean Springs. I mean, if you want it, you can find it down there. I mean, there's 10 Waffle Houses within a mile. So if you want to eat, and then on site, I mean, there's Steak and Shake, there's a steakhouse, there's a couple different restaurants. I mean, there's anything you can want is on property. And if you can't find it there, you can find it with really close.
Tell them about pre-reg because I understand we're nearing in on that.
Yeah, I was just looking. Pre-registration closes next Sunday. So the third, well, not this coming up Sunday, but the following, the 31st. Midnight, August 31st. If you haven't pre-registered, that's done. You'll have to wait till day of the show. And we only have about 100 spots left. So it's going to be a first come, first serve basis.
The venue is huge. One of the greatest
Yeah.
things about this show, I want to give it up to our title sponsor, Scrapin' the Coast. They've been with us 10 years. They're also in Biloxi. But 3 months after Scrapin', which is the 19th, the 20th, and the 21st of September, you have
Mhm.
your awesome event, the Freakin' Weekend, and it brings in a ton of different variety. Last
Yeah.
year, I saw a truck that I literally thought was from like the Monster Jam. It was so lifted and crazy, and it sounded like one. How important is it for you not to pigeonhole yourself and say, hey, we want all these different show goers to come and experience?
Yeah, so I mean, we're a mini truck show like at heart, but we have classes across the board. If you got a cool side by side, a cool bike, car, truck, lifted, like you said, the Aaron and his big monster Jeep, he's bringing out something he said is even bigger than that this year. But if it's cool, we want to see it. I mean, we've had semis in the field, we've had hot rods, we have a little bit of everything.
Excellent. The other key thing is mini truck and row. So if you have a mini truck and you want to park in mini truck and row, get with us. You can send me a message.
Yeah.
We did this unique experience and you had all these mini truckers last year. You had Zach, you had Chad, you had all these
Mhm.
different clubs. And to me, it was so cool because the venue is so big. Nobody feels like they're tight on space, right? You set up your
Yeah.
camp, you set up your tents, you make sure that they're anchored down and you can literally have a great time all weekend. How important was it for you to have the KIKs, right? And Robert Simmons and all of those guys come out with their different trucks and showcase right there in the front?
Yeah, so we wanted to display obviously our favorite, our genre is mini truck. So we kind of display that heavy and we picked our favorite ones and it didn't matter the club, the person who it was. And we picked our favorite trucks and we lined them up right there on the display row. And we're going to do it again this year. And we got some pretty cool stuff lined up to be there this year.
Yeah, one thing I want to show you guys is if you look at, I mean, this is just a small variety. You had people from Texas, you had Scotty the Body and Jen Elise from Florida. You had Tom from all the way from Arizona. I think Ben Miller may have came out as well. Matt
Mhm.
Stone. You had so many different people, and this was the cool thing. When I walked all the way out by the water, you had Committed Club out there in this full-size truck, right?
Yeah.
So the variety is just insane. You also had this younger kid, which reinforces the younger generation is getting is up and coming. This truck was
Mhm.
like totally insane. It may not fit everyone's mold of what, they want to see at a show. But what was super awesome, Tripp, is it shows the variety and having going to shows
Yeah.
for 29, almost 30 straight years. That's a key thing. If you go to this
Yeah.
event, you're going to see something more than likely you've never seen.
For sure. I mean, we try to bring out, the best quality of everything we can find. So, I mean, we bring out the heavy hitters for sure. But if you got weird stuff, for sure, we like to see it. That his truck was incredible.
So look, one of the other key things is Friday night and Saturday. Talk to us about the Friday piece and then who can attend and Saturday, Tripp.
So Friday's open to pretty much anybody. It's a friends and family hospitality night. Jesse Jacobo's cooking a bunch of jambalaya. We'll have some free beer. Get low, have some music going in the field. It's all at the stage in the show field. Saturday is the after party with the bikini contest, and it's the big party that everybody wants to go to. And I'm glad you brought that up, so we can originally set aside tickets just for the first 300 pre-reg, but we had a kind of a surplus of tickets left that weren't claimed through that pre-registration. So we're going to have about 75 tickets for sale extra. If you come in and you don't want to register and want to just get a after party pass, we're going to have about 75. And again, those are going to be first come, first serve. Those are going to go live on our website September 1st. So if
It
you
seemed
want
like,
them and you want to be there, you can get them there.
yeah, for anybody that hasn't been, I think this is the to keep me honest, third annual event. That Saturday night almost reminds me a couple times I've been out to SEMA with the round bar that a lot of people will hang out at, because you had this mix and mingle all the way into the night, right? Some of the
Yep.
folks will splurge and they'll get one of the little cabanas, right? Which is like a
Mhm.
true VIP experience. You
Right.
float around, you talk to all the different clubs. By the way, the bikini contest, look, you can call it what you want, but these girls got down. They went hard in the paint for
Yeah.
this amazing dollar payout. But then the
Yeah.
belly flop, the guys got involved as well. You had the whole pool area literally lined up. Everybody was watching.
Yeah.
And the experience, to me, just for that alone, is worth it.
Yeah, for sure. That the pool party is kind of taking on a life of its own. Like that's what people want to come to. They're registering trucks to get tickets to that, and I get messages every day. Hey, how do we get to that? How do we get to that? And so we do. Like I said, we do have a couple extras. It won't be many. That thing's going to be packed. It'll be standing room only for sure.
Something that's unique about this event, everyone, is if you're on the fence about coming out, you're like, hey, Biloxi, the 19th, the 20th, 21st, I don't have anything going on. Hey, listen, there's no, keep me honest, right? You guys may have swerved me at the last second. There's no spectator fee,
No,
right?
you
So
just
people
come and
can,
get
yeah, people can gallivant in,
it.
they could check out the show and they could peel away. If you want to support the event, you go support a vendor like a
Yeah.
KIK, like an OLP.
Yeah.
There's food vendors, there's food trucks. You could go
Yeah.
buy a show shirt, right? You could do
Yeah.
those type of things, that if you want to hang out, maybe you're not going to be able to get into the after party. There's even that big bar area across the street at Harris.
Yep. Yeah. So we have. So it's free to get in. It's free spectators. We as of now we have no plans on changing that. If you want to come out, it's free parking, free to walk in the gate. Come out, get some Dab's barbecue, get some egg rolls, whatever you want to do. Come hang out. It's free all weekend. We won't charge you $1 to get in. Obviously, the after party is kind of more towards participants, but as far as the event, it's free all weekend. And then, yeah, to your point, the Blind Tiger's right there in the field. If you want to go get a burger, fry, get a cold beer, you can walk right up and do it, and you don't have to pay to do any of that.
A lot of shows you'll go to, maybe the host restaurant and things like that, the go-to place isn't always great. This place is actually really, really good. You take the stairs, boom,
Mhm.
you're up there, you're right on the water. We ate there, I think, 2 or 3 nights in a row because it was that good. There's a lot of
Yeah.
different clubs that come out, but there's a couple of companies. I know O'Reilly's is one. There's a few companies that you probably said, hey, yo, Jay, I couldn't do this with my team unless these bigger companies step up, right? Besides Harris, Gulf Coast, do you want to give anybody a shout out?
Yeah, so Alpha Customs puts together our after party. They kind of foot the bill for all the craziness that happens on Saturday night. Obviously, Kyle and Amplify, they're the big dog on the show. They're our title sponsor. He's been a partner since day one. He, keeps us honest and makes everything happen on the back end. And then we partnered up with Lit FX this year. We've been posting a little bit of our new awards. They're kind of doing some crazy stuff with us on our specialty awards. But yeah, that's kind of the big people that kind of keep the wheels rolling on everything.
Now, Mike Murray was up in the air about, supposedly, we can't even get a hold of this guy, about bringing a Mazda. He said, yo, talk to Tripp. I don't think you guys will allow, if somebody doesn't bring their vehicle, they can't just show you a photo and still be in for an award.
No,
I mean, I don't know
no,
what he's
absolutely not.
thinking, but the
Absolutely
awards
not.
are a key piece to any event, as you know,
Yeah.
TRI, Double P. Who's laying down those awards for you this year?
Lit FX did all of our specialty awards. They're all LED board, 3D printed stuff, and some laser cut stuff. They're really cool. We posted a couple of videos of one the other day, but they're doing all of our specialty awards, and then Modified does all of our top 75 awards, our playing cards that we give out every year. They're handling those for us again this year.
I know on Facebook, you can look up Freakin Weekend. I'm calling it TFW, which
Yeah.
is short for The Freakin Weekend. You can also go on the website. There's a ton more information. What are a few more key things that people should know? Maybe they're a couple hours from the event. They're like, I don't know, it's the end of summer. Should I come out, Tripp?
You need to be there. Yeah, if you miss it, you miss it. It is a good time, and I'm not just saying that because it's my event. It's going to be the biggest party of the summer, and we nailed that the last couple of years, and we're doing it bigger this year. We got a couple of cool things in store for you. It's definitely worth coming out to.
If you don't trust us, go on Instagram right now and check out The Freakin Weekend. Look at what he's posted. He's got a very unique kind of guerrilla marketing style. My understanding was there was a comment from the guys that run this show, Tripp, that we blew the entire marketing budget on way cooler stuff than flyers, and I truly love that. But if you even look at what they've been tagged in, some of the collab posts that we've done, it shows you how easy it is to get from Harrah's and just walk across the street.
Yeah, for
It's
sure.
a very, very unique experience. And if you just look at some of those social media posts, I think it's going to gravitate and pull you in. Our friend Justin from Twin States was even in town last year. He gallivanted over that Saturday morning, slapped hands with a few people. And, I think he was looking around like, wow, this is going to be an awesome event.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, they're good people over there.
The Freakin Weekend, Facebook, Instagram, you do the Tickety Talk stuff, right, as well?
Yep, that's all through my media stuff. But yeah, we're on Instagram, we're on Facebook, and then our website. Our Instagram kind of got all the information you need.
TRIPP did it, right? That's your media piece that you're kind of growing over there. The office looks great. We've been out to the Freakin Weekend, and I tell you what, it's a great time. We like to also shoot over to some of the casinos that are around, including Harrah's. Mike usually will let me borrow his debit card, and we'll try to get some, we'll try to win. I told him, look, if we don't, I may not be able to pay you back, but it's all good.
He's got it. He's good for it.
Anything else you got for everyone? They need to go pre-register. They got about a week and a half. They need
about a week and a half to register.
Yeah, before Labor Day weekend.
Yep. We're closing Sunday at midnight on August 31st. So you have right at 11 days to pre-register and get a cheaper rate on your ticket. Prices go up day of the show, and they're also limited. So if you want to lock your spot in before you get there, I don't want to have to turn people away, but like I said, we have roughly 100 tickets left that's going to be sold between pre-registration and day of the show. So if you show up and we're out of tickets, there's not a lot I can do for you.
Do a freak check for all your freak homies out there.
Freak check?
The name spins off from that awesome club that's been around a long time. Big ups to Shannon and all the kinfolk in Freaks. But I can tell you this, do not act a fool. Show the respect that we've continued to see reinforced from LST and so many amazing shows out there. Big ups to our title sponsor, Scraping the Coast. Tripp, much love. TRIPP in the house. ODB, we out ya. Yo, I want to wrap this episode up just with a couple last things, but I want to thank LMC. I also want to thank Tripp, TRIPP, for coming on and spending time with us this week. We did have a storm the other day, which kind of derailed the audio that I was doing with LMC, but it was super cool that he made time, even on his kind of rounds that he was doing for work that evening, to kind of jump on. So thanks again. If you haven't listened to Lowest Common Denominator, it's a riot. You got to go listen to it. They're great people. LCD podcast. The last couple things I wanted to wrap up, again, I wanted to say Local Rides Mag. Tip of the cap to Bill and team. They're continuing to put out new issues. Their website will be updated soon, I'm sure. Local Rides with a Z Mag. But you also can follow them on Facebook. And that's where they showcase the new issue. So they're good people. So I want to, again, give them a mad props. Hut 1, Hut 2, Hut 3, Hut Old Dirty Biz Allard, live and uncut. And this one's kind of along the lines of what I've been sharing prior. Let's start setting your sights on your 2026 goals. What does that mean? If you think about 2025, hopefully you've been able to do some things or make progress on whatever you're working on, right? Whether that's a career, saving money, building a truck, spending money, whatever it is. So I would encourage you, as you get ready to get sideways potentially into 2026, start putting those goals that you have on paper, so to speak. And I know that's like an old school term now, like saying roll down the windows, right? I mean, how many people, unless you're a mini trucker, are really cranking down the windows anymore? But, in all seriousness, if you're using an app like I do, like with Notes or any kind of app like that, just go in there and make your checklist. If it's for a truck or a project, go in there. And I'm telling you, if you haven't committed your to-do list, on paper or on an app, it definitely helps. And I want to say, I've said this before, the guy that owned Virgin Mobile and Virgin Airlines and that Branson guy, I think that was a tip that I got from reading some of his tips and things that he goes through. Like when he has an idea, he takes a Post-it note and he writes it out. And he's like, man, there's some sort of number that's tied to, if you put it on paper or you make a list, if you're a checklist person like me, you have much more opportunity or much more, I think, a higher chance of getting it done. And that's the way I am. Every week I make a list and, there's things like, hey, I need to do some stuff in the yard. I need to do this. I need to do that. And it certainly has helped me. So maybe it will help you. Again, ODB Live and Uncut brought to you by Phoenix Forged. If you're watching this on YouTube and you look over here, however I can point way over here, that is our spinning necklace made by Phoenix Forged. And that's basically kind of replicating a floating center cap. They make awesome wheels. So if you want to get some for your tow pig, hit up Kennedy at Phoenix, F-E-N-I-X Forged. But they're also looking to expand their products, and we hope to see that here in the near future. The podcast updates brought to you by Freakin Weekend. Again, we just heard from Tripp. The only thing I will tell you is, as planned, our Saved by the Syndicate, which is the Roadster Shop / Good Guys giveaway. We've become friends with Dennis, so tip of the cap to Dennis, the big homie. And we, had gotten approval through him to say, hey, let's go ahead and throw it on some merch. Let's do it. And it's been a huge success, and we can't thank you enough. By the time you hear this, you should be able to go on and still order a banner, stickers, so on and so forth. And we will then ship them when they come in. But as planned, we did have that pre-sale end on a Sunday. I submitted the order to Brant on a Monday, and by the time that email came back to verify the quantities, we paid on that Tuesday. That's about the quickest turnaround we can do after we announce a pre-sale end date. And what that resulted in is, boom, Graphic Disorder had a 2 to 3 week lead time. I think that's what he's been kind of using now. For a long time, it was kind of like a 2-week lead time for print. Throwing that 2 to 3 weeks kind of gives them 2.5 weeks, if you will. But that will put us potentially around probably maybe the week of Labor Day, that those things will come and ship to Mike and Shannon. And the goal, hopefully, looking at the timeline, barring any craziness, those will be bagged, tagged, and shipped out hopefully way in advance of the Freakin Weekend. There is a code that you could still use the Freakin Weekend. I think it's in the description if you decide to order. If you're going to be at the event, you can use that code. It waives the shipping, and then you would just pick it up there. And please understand, the shipping costs, I know, have went up a lot. So, for a small organization like us, we certainly, can't afford to even, waive the shipping unless we do what we call in-store pickup, which is at an event that we're going to be at. And that's just because, again, I mean, it costs a lot. And Mike takes it to the post office, and we also use stamps.com, which gives us a little bit of a discount. So, it is what it is. Everything is super expensive these days. With that being said, I will say that we have done our best, and I think we've done a good job of not raising the prices on our products. In fact, in a lot of cases, we went down. We were at a mini Nats a couple years ago. I think it was really chilly, and maybe it was LST, and people needed hoodies. And we said, look, we're not going to try to cash in because it's cold. Like, we've got some hoodies here. We'll go ahead and sell them to you at a very fair price. And they couldn't give us the money quick enough. And that's just what we do, man. I know we say this and people may not believe us. We don't do it for the money. If you knew how much the costs were for the Podbean and the Adobe and, the tracking software for receipts and all that stuff, it's not a huge moneymaker. If we break even, we're happy. So with that being said, thank you so much for all the support. I want to thank Scraping the Coast, our title sponsored, again, Hammered Weekend Wear, Lone Star Throwdown, Garage Gear Clothing, Phoenix Forged. I want to give a huge shout out to Mini Nats, Mini Truckin Magazine as well. I know I haven't really been talking about them a lot. I think Logan and team has the pedal stomped on the new issue, hopefully coming soon. So we'll have more on that. But thank you for the support. Follow us on social media. And if you saw my little bit of a post that I was getting a little frustrated about my reels, that was because Meta had broken where my reels were not going from Instagram to Facebook. And I'm trying to keep things as simple as possible these days. And it was a pain in the butt because I just don't have the time to go to Facebook and do a whole separate post. And that has been fixed. So I am very excited as we roll into Friday. I'm enjoying Dexter, the new season. It's been totally insane. So there's a couple episodes left there. That's what I'll be watching. Stay on the rise. We might have an episode before Labor Day. We may not. It's going to depend on if I can get the audio done next week. If we do, it'll come out right before Labor Day. And I would say have a great, safe Labor Day weekend. Many of you are off that Monday, kind of the official, unofficial end of summer, not for us in Florida. But I will say, whether we do have one next week or not, I'm not going to talk to you potentially until after Labor Day. So what I'm trying to say is have a great Labor Day weekend. Stay on the rise, everyone. Much love, much respect to all the mini truckers worldwide and all the people that love pop culture as much as I do. We out ya, and thank you from East to West Coast for all the love and worldwide. Peace out.